Somewhere in ancient Greece, a cursed creature lay in hiding. Among all the monsters that haunted Hellenic nightmares, this was undoubtedly one of the most feared. Many brave heroes had dared to hunt it, but none had ever returned. It was said that this being was so horrific that no one could come near it. Its name was Medusa, but Medusa had not always been this way. She was once one of the most beautiful women to ever walk the earth. Born from the union of two primordial sea deities, Phorcys and Ceto, she entered the world as an ordinary child. Medusa had two sisters, Stheno and Euryale, Gorgons, creatures who combined the features of women and serpents. From a young age, Medusa was devoted to the goddess Athena. When playing with her sisters, she always pretended to be Athena, while her sisters preferred to play the villains. They were often joined by a boy named Iphicles, Medusa's best friend. The two were inseparable. As Medusa grew, her beauty intensified. Her charm made young Iphicles an easy target for Eros, the god of love. Eventually, he confessed his feelings. Though Medusa loved him deeply, her dream was to become a priestess of Athena, something that required renouncing all temptations of love. When she came of age, she began her training to serve as Athena's priestess. The temple demanded immaculate behavior and discipline. Every action reflected on the goddess herself. The most crucial requirement was absolute purity. Like the virgin goddess they served, the girls had to remain untouched. Medusa became the perfect priestess, perhaps too perfect. Her rituals attracted more and more followers, captivated by her beauty. Her long, flowing hair mesmerized all who looked upon her. One naive man even said her hair was more beautiful than Athena's. From atop Mount Olympus, Athena noticed a stir at one of her temples. She realized that many were there not to worship her, but to gaze upon her enchanting priestess. Athena resisted punishing the worshippers or Medusa, knowing the girl was merely excelling at her duties. But Poseidon noticed Athena's unease. The sea god and Athena had a long-standing rivalry over who would be the patron of Attica's capital. Athena had won, and the city was renamed Athens in her honor. Poseidon, still bitter, saw an opportunity for revenge through Medusa. He realized that Athena's most cherished priestess could become the perfect pawn. Poseidon set his sights on Medusa, seeking to stain Athena's honor. Meanwhile, Medusa carried on her life, unaware she was being watched by the gods. While walking by the sea, Medusa heard her name being called. The voice came from the ocean. Poseidon emerged in all his divine glory and tried to seduce her. Though stunned by his majesty, Medusa did not forget her vows and rejected him. Poseidon wouldn't take no for an answer. He grabbed her arm, but Medusa instinctively struck him in the face and broke free. She ran to Athena's temple, the only place where she felt safe. But Poseidon, driven by lust, pursued her. Just as he reached her, brave Iphicles intervened, standing between the god and Medusa. Poseidon, however, brushed him aside with a single blow. Medusa entered the temple and knelt before Athena's statue, praying for protection, but it was too late. Poseidon caught up and assaulted her upon the altar of the goddess. Afterward, Poseidon left satisfied. Not only had he defiled Athena's temple, but he had corrupted her most loyal priestess. Medusa was consumed by shame. She felt unclean. Athena, speaking through her statue, appeared in anger. She scolded Medusa, saying that her dazzling beauty and vanity had drawn men away from virtue and purity, tarnishing the goddess's name and desecrating her sacred space. Athena, furious, punished Medusa. Her once beautiful hair became a nest of serpents. Her gaze turned men to stone. She was no longer the perfect priestess, but a monster. That night, Iphicles regained consciousness and searched for Medusa. He found her sobbing in the temple. She told him not to come closer. She couldn't bear to be seen. But he approached, trying to console her. When he touched her shoulder, a snake bit his hand. She turned to face him, and the two locked eyes. In that instant, Iphicles was turned to stone. Devastated, Medusa embraced the statue of her best friend. To avoid hurting anyone else, she fled. But as she escaped, city dwellers spotted her. Anyone who met her gaze turned to stone. Rumors spread about the horrible creature with serpent hair. A hunting party was assembled. They too were found later, petrified, faces twisted in terror. Medusa had never intended harm. She simply sought to defend herself from an unjust curse. She hid in a remote region, long abandoned by people. There, she found a ruined temple and made it her refuge. Warriors came seeking glory, but none returned. Alone, Medusa lost the last remnants of her humanity. Her reputation as a monster became legend. To survive, she hunted small animals. One of her hunts led her to a rediscovery, an ancient bust of Athena. She realized the ruin had once been one of the goddess's first sanctuaries. This revelation sparked something within her. Medusa began caring for the temple, honoring the goddess once more. Despite her miserable existence, she displayed great nobility. In her celestial palace, Athena took notice. These quiet, unseen acts of faith showed that Medusa's actions were never rooted in vanity. The goddess regretted the harsh and irreversible punishment. One day, as Medusa performed another ritual, she sensed an intruder. Her monstrous instincts kicked in. A brave warrior cautiously approached the lair. As she prepared to strike, she noticed something astonishing. He carried Athena's shield, the aegis once wielded by Zeus himself. The shield was so polished, it reflected like a mirror. Through the reflection, the warrior saw her approaching from behind. With a swift strike, he severed her head. Medusa was dead. Her blood dripped to the ground. The once unknown warrior was now forever remembered as Perseus. After his quest, he returned the aegis to Athena and gave her Medusa's head. Few knew that Medusa bore Poseidon's divine seed. From her blood sprang Chrysia, the warrior with the golden sword, and Pegasus, the winged horse, pure, innocent, and a symbol of all the beauty stolen from his mother. Some say Athena's aid to Perseus was another act of vengeance, but the truth was more compassionate. The goddess simply wished to free Medusa from the torment unfairly imposed on her. In the end, Athena honored Medusa by placing her head upon her shield. The image of her most faithful priestess was now immortal, forever beside the goddess she had always loved.